World of Greed. Greed CRND, World of Greed. When a world revolves around greed, world greed. A world without greed is no world at all. Mad props. Mad props. Dear readers, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for taking the time to read and purchase this book. Your support not only fuels my passion for writing but also fosters a community of engaged individuals eager to explore complex themes that shape our world. In the pages that follow, I will dive into critical topics such as greed and disinformation, two pervasive forces that significantly impact our society. Greed, often manifested in various forms, drives individuals and organizations to prioritize profit over ethical considerations, leading to detrimental consequences for communities and the environment. Meanwhile, disinformation spreads rapidly in our digital age, undermining trust and distorting reality, which can have far-reaching implications for public discourse and decision-making. Through thoughtful analysis and compelling narratives, I aim to shed light on these issues, encouraging readers to reflect on their implications and consider the role we all play in addressing them. Thank you once again for your support, and I hope you find this exploration both enlightening and thought-provoking. Sincerely, Eric Lovell Robinson. God bless. Table of Contents. What is greed? History of ancient greed, government greed, cooperate greed, real estate greed. 20. Human nature of greed. 23. Is greed necessary? 39. Modern greed. 43. Reducing greed. 49. A world of greed. 59. Inflation and greed. 68. Love and greed. The conclusion. 87-9. Chapter 1. What is greed? Understanding greed. Greed, often defined as an intense and selfish desire for something, particularly wealth, power, or food, is a complex emotion that has been explored in various fields, including psychology, economics, and philosophy. This chapter aims to dissect the concept of greed, its implications, and its manifestations in human behavior. The nature of greed. Greed can be characterized as an insatiable longing for more than what one needs or deserves. It transcends mere desire. It becomes a driving force that can lead individuals to prioritize their own interests over the well-being of others. This self-serving behavior often results in negative consequences, both for the individual and society at large. Historical perspectives. Throughout history, greed has been depicted in literature, religion, and moral teachings as a vice. For instance, in many religious texts, greed is condemned as a sin that leads to moral decay. Philosophers like Aristotle viewed greed as a distortion of the natural desire for good, suggesting that it arises from a lack of virtue and moderation. Psychological underpinnings. From a psychological standpoint, greed can be linked to various factors, including insecurity, fear of scarcity, and the desire for control. Individuals who experience a lack of fulfillment in their lives may turn to material possessions or power as a means of compensating for their emotional voids. This behavior can lead to a cycle of dissatisfaction, as the pursuit of more often results in diminishing returns. Economic implications. In economics, greed is often associated with the pursuit of profit and self-interest. While some argue that greed can drive innovation and economic growth, it can also lead to unethical practices, such as exploitation and corruption. The 2008 financial crisis serves as a stark example of how unchecked greed can have catastrophic effects on the global economy. Greed in society. Greed manifests in various forms within society, from corporate greed, where companies prioritize profits over ethical considerations, to individual greed, where people hoard resources at the expense of others. This behavior can exacerbate social inequalities and contribute to systemic issues such as poverty and environmental degradation. Understanding greed is essential for fostering a more equitable and compassionate society. By recognizing the underlying motivations and consequences of greedy behavior, individuals and communities can work towards cultivating values of generosity, empathy, and cooperation. In the following chapters, we will explore strategies for mitigating greed and promoting a more balanced approach to desire and fulfillment. The importance of understanding greed, a critical examination. This book is crucial in its exploration of greed because it delves into the multifaceted nature of this emotion, examining not only its definition, but also its profound implications on individual well-being and societal structures. By understanding greed, we can better appreciate its pervasive influence and the necessity of addressing it in our lives. Understanding greed. Greed is not merely a personal flaw, it is a societal issue that affects everyone. The book provides a comprehensive analysis of greed, highlighting its psychological, economic, and ethical dimensions. By dissecting these aspects, readers can gain insight into how greed operates on both an individual and collective level. The case for eliminating greed. 1. Personal well-being. Greed often leads to stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. The relentless pursuit of more, whether it be wealth, status, or possessions, can create a cycle of unhappiness. By eliminating greed, individuals can focus on what truly matters, fostering a sense of contentment and fulfillment. 2. Mental health. The book emphasizes the correlation between greed and mental health issues. Greed can lead to feelings of isolation, guilt, and inadequacy, as individuals compare themselves to others. By reconsidering our relationship with greed, we can promote healthier mindsets that prioritize well-being over material accumulation. 3. Social implications. Greed contributes to social inequality and injustice. The book argues that when individuals prioritize their own desires over the needs of others, it exacerbates societal divides. By addressing greed, we can work towards a more equitable society where resources are shared and collective well-being is prioritized. 4. Environmental impact. Greed drives unsustainable practices that harm the planet. The book discusses how the relentless pursuit of profit often leads to environmental degradation. By reconsidering our values and reducing greed, we can foster a more sustainable relationship with our environment. Broader implications. The implications of greed extend beyond individual and societal health. They touch upon ethical considerations and the moral fabric of our communities. The book encourages readers to reflect on their values and the impact of their choices, advocating for a shift towards generosity, empathy, and cooperation. In summary, this book is crucial in its examination of greed, because it not only defines the concept but also challenges readers to reconsider its broader implications. By advocating for the elimination of greed, it promotes a vision of a healthier, more equitable society. Understanding and addressing greed is essential for fostering personal well-being, improving mental health, and creating a more just and sustainable world. Through this exploration, readers are encouraged to reflect on their own lives and the collective future we share. Chapter 2. History of Ancient Greed. The farthest documented historical event related to greed can be traced back to ancient civilizations, particularly in Mesopotamia. One notable example is the Code of Hammurabi, which dates back to around 1754 BCE. This ancient Babylonian code of law includes provisions that address issues of property rights, trade, and economic transactions, reflecting the societal concerns about greed and its consequences. In the code, there are laws that regulate the behavior of merchants and the treatment of debtors, indicating that greed and exploitation were recognized as significant issues even in early societies. The laws aim to curb excessive greed by establishing fair practices in trade and protecting the vulnerable from exploitation. Additionally, ancient texts from various cultures, including the Epic of Gilgamesh, also touch upon themes of greed, particularly in the context of the pursuit of immortality and material wealth. These early narratives illustrate that the concept of greed has been a concern for humanity for millennia, influencing moral and ethical discussions throughout history. Thus, while the specific manifestations of greed may have evolved, its recognition as a detrimental force in society has deep historical roots. Greed in the Bible. Torah. The Bible addresses the concept of greed in various passages, often portraying it as a vice that leads to moral decay and spiritual downfall. Here are some notable examples. 1. The story of Achan. In this account, Achan disobeys God's command by taking forbidden spoils from the conquest of Jericho. His greed leads to Israel's defeat in battle and ultimately results in his execution, illustrating the destructive consequences of greed not only for the individual but also for the community. 2. The parable of the rich fool. In this parable, Jesus tells the story of a wealthy man who hoards his possessions, believing that they will secure his future. God calls him a fool, as his life is demanded of him that very night. This parable emphasizes the futility of greed and the importance of being rich toward God rather than accumulating material wealth. 3. The love of money. The Apostle Paul warns that the love of money is the root of all evil. This passage highlights how greed can lead individuals away from faith and into various forms of wrongdoing, emphasizing the moral dangers associated with an excessive desire for wealth. 4. The rich young ruler. In this story, a wealthy young man approaches Jesus seeking eternal life. Jesus tells him to sell all his possessions and give to the poor. The young man, unable to part with his wealth, walks away sorrowful. This narrative illustrates the challenge of greed in the pursuit of spiritual fulfillment. Greed in the Quran. The Quran also addresses greed, often linking it to moral failings and social injustices. Here are some key references. 1. Condemnation of hoarding. The Quran criticizes those who hoard wealth and gold, warning that they will face severe consequences on the Day of Judgment. This passage emphasizes the importance of using wealth for charitable purposes, rather than accumulating it selfishly. 2. The story of Qarun. Qarun is depicted as a wealthy man who becomes arrogant due to his riches. He is warned by the wise among his people to be humble and to use his wealth for good. His eventual downfall serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed and pride. 3. The prohibition of usury. The Quran explicitly forbids usury, which is often associated with greed and exploitation. Surah Al-Baqarah states that those who engage in usury will face dire consequences, highlighting the ethical implications of greed in financial dealings. 4. Encouragement of charity. The Quran emphasizes the importance of giving to those in need as a counter to greed. Zakat, or almsgiving, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, reinforcing the idea that wealth should be shared and used to support the less fortunate. Both the Bible and the Quran provide rich narratives and teachings that address the concept of greed. They highlight its moral implications, the dangers it poses to individuals and society, and the importance of generosity and ethical behavior with wealth, and to prioritize spiritual and communal well-being over material. Accumulation. Chapter 3. Government greed. Government greed typically refers to the perception or reality of government officials prioritizing personal gain, financial benefits, or power over the public good. This concept can manifest in various forms such as corruption, misuse of public funds, or the implementation of policies that favor special interests rather than the general populace. The origins of government greed can be traced back to the establishment of organized governments, where the concentration of power and resources often led to opportunities for exploitation. Historical examples include instances of bribery, embezzlement, and favoritism, which have been documented throughout various civilizations. In modern society, government greed has evolved with the complexities of political systems, economic structures, and technological advancements. The rise of lobbying, campaign financing, and the influence of corporations on politics have contributed to a perception that government officials may prioritize the interests of a few over the needs of the many. This has led to increased public scrutiny, calls for transparency, and demands for accountability in governance. The impact of government greed on modern society is significant. It can erode public trust in institutions, lead to social inequality, and hinder economic development. As citizens become more aware of these issues, there is a growing movement advocating for reforms aimed at reducing corruption and increasing the integrity of government operations. Government greed can significantly harm a society and potentially lead it to the brink of collapse through various mechanisms. Here are several ways in which this phenomenon manifests and its implications for societal stability. 1. Corruption and misallocation of resources. When government officials prioritize personal gain over public service, corruption can flourish. This misallocation of resources often results in essential services, such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure, being underfunded or poorly managed. As a consequence, the quality of life for citizens deteriorates, leading to widespread dissatisfaction and unrest. 2. Economic inequality. Greed-driven policies can exacerbate economic inequality. When wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, often due to favorable legislation or tax breaks for the elite, the majority of the population may struggle to meet basic needs. This disparity can foster social tensions, increase crime rates, and ultimately destabilize society. 3. Erosion of trust in institutions. As citizens become aware of government greed and corruption, trust in public institutions erodes. This loss of faith can lead to apathy or, conversely, to civil unrest and protests. When people feel that their government does not represent their interests, they may resort to extreme measures, including violence, to express their discontent. 4. Manipulation of laws and regulations. Governments may exploit their power to create laws that benefit a select few while harming the broader population. This manipulation can include deregulation that allows corporations to pollute the environment or exploit workers, leading to long-term societal and ecological damage. 5. Debt and economic instability. Greed can drive governments to engage in excessive borrowing or spending on projects that primarily benefit those in power, rather than the public. This can lead to unsustainable debt levels, economic instability, and, in severe cases, default. The resulting economic crisis can trigger widespread unemployment, poverty, and social unrest. 6. Weaponization of resources. In extreme cases, governments may use their control over resources as a weapon against their own citizens or other nations. This can include withholding essential services, manipulating food and water supplies, or using economic sanctions to exert control. Such actions can lead to humanitarian Crises and exacerbate existing tensions within and between societies. 7. Social division and conflict. Greed can foster division within society, as different groups vie for limited resources or power. This division can manifest in various forms, including ethnic, racial, or class conflicts. When societal cohesion breaks down, the potential for violence and civil war increases, pushing the society closer to collapse. Here are some notable examples from America and around the world. United States. 1. Teapot Dome Scandal. This was a bribery scandal involving the administration of President Warren G. Harding. The U.S. Secretary of the Interior, Albert B. Fall, secretly leased federal oil reserves to private companies in exchange for bribes, leading to a significant political scandal. 2. The savings and loan crisis. This financial crisis was partly due to deregulation that allowed savings and loan associations to engage in risky investments. Many executives exploited the system for personal gain, leading to a costly bailout for taxpayers. 3. Flint water crisis. In Flint, Michigan, government officials made decisions that prioritized cost-cutting over public health, leading to lead contamination in the drinking water. The crisis highlighted negligence and a lack of accountability among government leaders. International examples. 1. Brazil's Operation Car Wash. This massive corruption investigation revealed a widespread scheme involving bribery and kickbacks between government officials and construction companies. It implicated numerous politicians and led to significant political upheaval. 2. The 1MDB scandal in Malaysia. This involved the embezzlement of billions of dollars from a government-owned investment fund. High-ranking officials, including former Prime Minister Najib Razak, were implicated in the misappropriation of funds for personal gain. 3. The Enron scandal. While primarily a corporate scandal, it involved significant collusion with government officials to manipulate energy markets in California. The fallout led to widespread financial losses and highlighted regulatory failures. These examples illustrate how government greed can have far-reaching consequences, affecting public trust and the well-being of citizens. In summary, government greed can act as a catalyst for societal harm by fostering corruption, increasing inequality, eroding trust, manipulating laws, creating economic instability, weaponizing resources, and inciting social division. The cumulative effect of these factors can lead a society to the edge of collapse, highlighting the critical need for transparency, accountability, and ethical governance to safeguard the well-being of the populace. Chapter 4. Corporate Greed. Understanding Corporate Greed. Introduction to Corporate Greed. Corporate greed refers to the excessive desire for profit and financial gain by corporations, often at the expense of ethical considerations, social responsibility, and the well-being of employees, consumers, and the environment. This phenomenon is characterized by prioritizing short-term financial performance over long-term sustainability and ethical practices. Manifestations of corporate greed. Corporate greed can manifest in various ways, including 1. Excessive executive compensation. One of the most visible signs of corporate greed is the disparity between executive pay and the wages of average employees. When top executives receive exorbitant salaries, bonuses, and stock options, it can create a culture of inequality within the organization. 2. Cost-cutting measures. Corporations may engage in aggressive cost-cutting strategies that compromise product quality, employee welfare, and customer service. This can include outsourcing jobs to lower-wage countries, reducing employee benefits, or skimping on safety measures. 3. Deceptive marketing practices. In pursuit of profit, some companies may resort to misleading advertising or false claims about their products, leading consumers to make uninformed decisions. 4. Environmental exploitation. Corporate greed often leads to environmental degradation, as companies prioritize profit over sustainable practices. This can include pollution, deforestation, and the depletion of natural resources. 5. Lobbying and political influence. Corporations may engage in lobbying efforts to influence legislation in their favor, often undermining public interest and regulatory frameworks designed to protect consumers and the environment. Historical context. The roots of corporate greed can be traced back to the rise of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries. However, one of the earliest documented instances of corporate greed can be seen in the practices of the South Sea Company in the early 18th century. Founded in 1711, the company was involved in trade with South America and became infamous for its speculative bubble, driven by greed and manipulation. The subsequent collapse in 1720 led to significant financial ruin for many investors and highlighted the dangers of unchecked corporate ambition. Corporate greed is a complex issue that has evolved over centuries, manifesting in various forms that impact society and the environment. Understanding its origins and manifestations is crucial for addressing the ethical challenges faced by modern corporations. As we move forward, it is essential to foster a culture of accountability and responsibility within the corporate world to mitigate the adverse effects of greed. There are several documented examples of companies that have engaged in corporate greed, which ultimately harmed their businesses. Here are a few notable cases. 1. Enron Corporation. Enron was involved in one of the largest accounting frauds in history. The company used complex financial structures to hide debt and inflate profits. When the truth was revealed in 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy, leading to significant financial losses for shareholders and employees, and resulting in criminal charges against top executives. 2. Volkswagen emissions scandal. In 2015, it was discovered that Volkswagen had installed software in diesel vehicles to cheat emissions tests. This corporate deception led to billions in fines, a significant drop in stock prices, and a loss of consumer trust. The scandal resulted in legal repercussions and a long-term impact on the company's reputation. 3. Wells Fargo fake account scandal. In 2016, it was revealed that Wells Fargo employees had created millions of unauthorized accounts to meet aggressive sales targets. This unethical practice led to hefty fines, a damaged reputation, and a decline in customer trust, ultimately affecting the bank's profitability and market position. 4. Theranos. The health technology company claimed to have developed revolutionary blood testing technology. However, it was later revealed that the technology did not work as promised. The company's founder faced criminal charges for fraud, and Theranos dissolved in 2018, resulting in significant financial losses for investors and stakeholders. 5. BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill. In 2010, BP's cost-cutting measures and negligence led to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, one of the worst environmental disasters in history. The company faced billions in fines, legal settlements and cleanup costs, severely damaging its reputation and financial standing. These examples illustrate how corporate greed can lead to unethical practices, resulting in significant harm to businesses, their employees, and stakeholders. In reality, the customer they are receiving something of lesser value. Furthermore, the focus on short-term profits can result in a lack of investment in sustainable practices or innovation, ultimately leading to a stagnation in product quality and variety. As companies prioritize shareholder returns over consumer welfare, the overall market can suffer, leading to fewer choices and lower standards for consumers. In summary, corporate greed can undermine consumer trust and satisfaction by prioritizing profit over quality, leading to a negative impact on both the market and the consumer experience. Chapter 5. The greed in real estate. Real estate greed refers to the excessive pursuit of profit in the real estate market, often at the expense of community welfare, affordability, and ethical considerations. This phenomenon can manifest in various ways, including speculative buying, aggressive development practices, and the prioritization of profit over the needs of residents. Effects on the housing market. 1. Inflated prices. Real estate greed can lead to inflated property prices as investors and developers seek to maximize their returns. This can make housing unaffordable for many individuals and families, particularly first-time buyers. 2. Speculation. Investors may purchase properties not to live in them but to hold them as assets, waiting for their value to increase. This speculation can reduce the availability of homes for actual residents, further driving up prices. 3. Gentrification. In some cases, real estate greed can lead to gentrification, where wealthier individuals move into a neighborhood, driving up property values and taxes. This often displaces long-term residents who can no longer afford to live in their own communities. Impact on renters, owners, and neighbors. Renters. As property values rise, landlords may increase rents to match market rates, making it difficult for renters to find affordable housing. This can lead to increased homelessness and housing instability. Existing homeowners may benefit from rising property values in the short term. However, they may also face higher property taxes and costs associated with living in a rapidly changing neighborhood. Additionally, they may find it challenging to sell their homes if the market becomes overly saturated with investment properties. Communities can suffer from a lack of cohesion as real estate greed transforms neighborhoods into transient zones dominated by short-term rentals or corporate-owned properties. This can erode the sense of community and lead to conflicts between long-term residents and new arrivals. Transformation into zoned corporate facilities. Real estate greed can lead to the conversion of residential areas into corporate facilities or mixed-use developments. Developers may lobby for zoning changes that allow for higher density buildings or commercial properties, prioritizing profit over the needs of the community. This can result in loss of affordable housing. As land is repurposed for commercial use or luxury developments, affordable housing options diminish, exacerbating the housing crisis. Homogenization of neighborhoods. The influx of corporate entities can lead to a lack of diversity in local businesses and services, making neighborhoods less vibrant and unique. Wealthy individuals and conflicts with regular citizens. Wealthy individuals often leverage their financial resources to engage in real estate practices that can create conflicts with regular citizens. Bulk buying. Wealthy investors may buy multiple properties in a neighborhood, driving up prices and limiting opportunities for average buyers. This can create a competitive environment where regular citizens are outbid and unable to secure homes. Political influence. Wealthy developers may have the means to influence local policies and zoning laws in their favor, further entrenching their interests and sidelining the needs of the community. Displacement. As neighborhoods become more desirable due to investment and development, long-time residents may be forced out due to rising costs, leading to social and economic divides. Pushing out small businesses in favor of more profitable ventures such as chain stores or luxury developments. This not only reduces the diversity of local businesses but can also diminish the unique character of neighborhoods which small businesses often help to define. Furthermore, the focus on maximizing real estate profits can lead to neglect in maintaining properties, resulting in deteriorating conditions that can deter customers and negatively impact the overall business environment. In summary, real estate greed can create a challenging landscape for small business owners, threatening their viability and the economic health of the communities they serve. In summary, real estate greed has far-reaching implications for the housing market, affecting renters, homeowners, and entire communities. It can lead to a cycle of speculation, gentrification, and corporate dominance that undermines the stability and affordability of housing for regular citizens. Addressing these issues requires a concerted effort from policymakers, community members, and stakeholders to prioritize equitable development and housing access. Chapter 6. Human Nature of Greed. Human nature, particularly in the context of greed, refers to the intrinsic tendencies and behaviors that characterize humans, often driven by the desire for more than what is necessary or sufficient. Greed can be defined as an intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. It is often seen as a fundamental aspect of human behavior that can lead to both individual and societal consequences. Understanding greed. 1. Psychological basis. Greed is often rooted in psychological factors such as insecurity, fear of scarcity, and the desire for status. It can manifest as an insatiable appetite for more, leading individuals to prioritize their own needs over the well-being of others. 2. Evolutionary perspective. From an evolutionary standpoint, the desire for resources can be seen as a survival mechanism. Early humans who were able to acquire and hoard resources had a better chance of survival and reproduction. This instinct may have been beneficial in ancestral environments but can lead to negative outcomes in modern society. 3. Cultural influences. Different cultures have varying attitudes towards greed. In some societies, the pursuit of wealth is celebrated, while in others it is viewed as a vice. Cultural narratives and values can shape how greed is perceived and acted upon. Historical context. The first human interactions with greed can be traced back to early human societies where competition for resources was essential for survival. As communities formed, the accumulation of resources became a source of power and status. Historical texts, such as religious scriptures and philosophical writings, often depict greed as a moral failing. Warning against its consequences. Consequences of greed. 1. Social impact. Greed can lead to inequality, exploitation, and conflict. When individuals prioritize their own desires over communal well-being, it can result in social strife and division. 2. Economic implications. In economic contexts, greed can drive market behaviors that lead to instability, such as speculative bubbles and financial crises. The pursuit of profit at the expense of ethical considerations can have far-reaching consequences. 3. Personal relationships. On a personal level, greed can damage relationships. It can foster distrust and resentment among individuals, leading to a breakdown in social bonds. Emotional and sexual greed can significantly undermine human relationships by fostering feelings of insecurity, mistrust, and resentment. Here are several ways in which these forms of greed can be detrimental. 1. Erosion of trust. When one partner exhibits emotional or sexual greed, it can lead to feelings of betrayal and insecurity in the other partner. Trust is foundational in any relationship, and when it is compromised, it can be challenging to rebuild. 2. Imbalance in the relationship. Greed often leads to a one-sided dynamic where one partner's needs and desires overshadow those of the other. This imbalance can create feelings of neglect and resentment, ultimately straining the relationship. 3. Increased conflict. Emotional and sexual greed can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts. When one partner is focused on their own desires, it can result in arguments and a breakdown in communication, further damaging the relationship. 4. Loss of intimacy. Genuine emotional and sexual connections are built on mutual respect and understanding. Greed can turn these connections into transactional interactions, diminishing the depth of intimacy and affection. 5. Emotional exhaustion. Constantly navigating the challenges posed by a partner's greed can lead to emotional fatigue. This exhaustion can make it difficult for individuals to engage positively in the relationship, leading to withdrawal or disengagement. To foster healthier relationships, it is essential for individuals to reflect on their behaviors and strive for balance and empathy. By recognizing and addressing tendencies toward emotional and sexual greed, individuals can cultivate more fulfilling and sustainable connections with their partners. This shift not only benefits personal relationships but also contributes to overall emotional well-being and personal growth. Greed is a fundamental aspect of human nature that often manifests in everyday life in various ways. It can drive behaviors, decisions, and policies that not only affect individuals but also have broader implications for society. Here's how greed presents itself, and how it can hold back individuals and humanity as a whole. Manifestations of greed in everyday life. 1. Consumerism. People often purchase more than they need, driven by societal pressures, advertisements, and the desire for status. This consumer culture leads to overconsumption and waste, creating environmental and social issues. 2. Corporate behavior. Many companies prioritize profit maximization over ethical considerations. This can lead to exploitation of workers, environmental degradation, or the use of questionable marketing practices that endanger public welfare. 3. Wealth inequality. The drive for more wealth can lead to systemic inequalities. Those who have resources can amass power and control, amplifying their ability to influence political systems and perpetuate their economic advantages. 4. Job competition. In a workplace setting, individuals may engage in cutthroat competition, undermining colleagues to advance their careers. This creates hostile work environments and can lead to burnout and decreased morale. Impact on humanity. 1. Social stratification. Greed can bolster social divisions, as those at the top of the economic ladder seek to maintain their status. This creates barriers for upward mobility for others, leading to entrenched cycles of poverty. 2. Discrimination and oppression. Greed can lead to discriminatory practices as certain groups attempt to preserve their advantages. Wealthy individuals or groups may lobby against policies that would raise the minimum wage or improve working conditions for poorer communities, particularly marginalized racial or ethnic groups. This perpetuates a keep the poor poor mentality, facilitating systemic oppression. 3. Political corruption. Greed often infiltrates politics, where policymaking can be influenced by money rather than the common good. Lobbying efforts and campaign financing by wealthy interests lead to legislation that favors the few over the many, marginalizing those who cannot afford to influence decisions. 4. Lack of innovation. When resources are concentrated in the hands of a few, opportunities for the broader population to innovate or develop new solutions diminish. This stifles creativity and potential breakthroughs that could benefit society as a whole, holding back progress. 1. Impediments to equality. Greed undermines efforts to achieve social and economic equality. When individuals prioritize personal gain over community well-being, they advocate for policies that entrench disparities rather than promote equity. 2. Emotional and psychological strain. Greed can lead not only to stress and anxiety, but also to feelings of isolation and disconnection from others. This emotional toll can hinder collaborative efforts needed for societal growth. 3. Global challenges. Issues like climate change, poverty, and inequality require cooperative global actions. Greed often leads to short-term thinking and prioritizing profits over sustainable practices, delaying necessary collective solutions. Greed can have far-reaching impacts across various domains, including education, religion, cults, and even among animals. Here's an exploration of how greed manifests in each of these areas and its potential effects. Greed in education. 1. Funding disparities. Greed often manifests in educational funding, where wealthy districts have better resources than those in low-income areas. This leads to significant inequalities in the quality of education, teacher salaries, and available extracurricular activities. 2. Tuition increases. Many universities and colleges have faced tuition hikes driven by profit motives. Higher education institutions may prioritize revenue-generating programs at the expense of essential but less lucrative fields, reducing access to education for many. 3. Corruption and exploitation. In some cases, educational institutions exploit vulnerable students through predatory practices, such as deceptive recruitment strategies of for-profit colleges. Students may be left in debt without the promised job opportunities, demonstrating how greed can exploit aspirations for education. 4. Standardized testing. The commodification of education has led to an overemphasis on standardized testing. Companies that create these tests may prioritize profit over the educational needs of students, limiting teaching to test preparation rather than fostering a comprehensive understanding of the material. Greed in religion. 1. Financial exploitation. Some religious institutions and leaders may exploit followers for financial gain, pressuring them for donations and promising spiritual rewards in return. This can lead to financial hardship for vulnerable believers. 2. Commercialization of faith. The commercialization of religious practices, including selling religious artifacts or experiences, can dilute genuine spiritual experiences and prioritize profit over spiritual growth. 3. Power dynamics. Greed can lead to the consolidation of power within religious organizations, creating hierarchies that prioritize the interests of a few rather than the broader community. This can stifle dissent and hinder social progress. 4. Cult formation. Greed can be a driving force behind the creation of cults, where leaders manipulate followers not just for money, but also for power and control. Cults may exploit individuals' emotional vulnerabilities, leading to cycles of dependency and oppression. Greed in animals. 1. Resource hoarding. Within animal populations, greed can manifest through behaviors such as hoarding resources at the expense of others. Animals may compete aggressively for food sources, impacting social dynamics within groups, and potentially leading to scarcity for weaker individuals. 2. Social hierarchies. Greed can lead to the establishment of strict social hierarchies in animal communities. Dominant individuals may secure more resources, leaving less for others, which can create tensions or limit the reproductive success of subordinates. 3. Mating competition. In some species, individuals may exhibit greedy behaviors in mating, aggressively competing for partners or monopolizing access to mates, which can lead to increased conflict and stress within populations. Effects of greed. 1. Social inequality in education and society. Greed fosters inequality, leaving marginalized groups without access to necessary resources or opportunities. This can perpetuate cycles of poverty and limit social mobility. 2. Corruption and abuse of power. Greed often leads to corruption, whether in religious institutions or educational settings, undermining the integrity of systems meant to uplift individuals and communities. 3. Deteriorating communities, whether among humans or animals. Greed can lead to conflict, isolation, and mistrust within communities. This can damage relationships and ultimately hinder collaboration needed for collective survival and success. 4. Psychological impact. Greed can create stress, anxiety, and a sense of disconnection and competition, affecting mental health and social relationships among individuals, whether in educational environments, religious communities, or social groups. Greed manifests in various forms across education, religion, cults, and the animal kingdom. Its implications can lead to significant challenges, including inequality, corruption, and social discord. Addressing the root causes of greed and fostering cultures of sharing, collaboration, and empathy can help mitigate these negative effects and promote healthier, more equitable communities. Greed, while an intrinsic part of human nature, can lead to behaviors and systems that hinder both personal growth and societal progress. By fostering an environment that encourages cooperation, empathy, and shared prosperity, humanity can better navigate the challenges posed by greed. Creating equitable policies, promoting ethical business practices, and nurturing inclusive communities are vital in counteracting the negative effects of greed and allowing humanity to reach its full potential. Greed, often defined as an intense and selfish desire for something, particularly wealth, power, or possessions, can have profound implications on various aspects of a person's life, especially concerning personal health. This exploration reveals the multifaceted connections between greed and health, prompting deep reflection on its effects not only on individuals but also on societal dynamics. Psychological implications. 1. Chronic stress and anxiety. Greed can lead to a perpetual state of dissatisfaction, as the pursuit of wealth or possessions often becomes insatiable. This state can trigger chronic stress, which has been shown to have numerous adverse health effects, including elevated blood pressure, weakened immune response, and increased risk of heart disease. The constant anxiety linked to financial instability or competition can cultivate a toxic environment for mental health. 2. Depression and isolation. The relentless pursuit of material wealth may cause individuals to prioritize their ambitions over relationships, potentially leading to feelings of isolation and loneliness. Studies have shown that social connections are critical for mental health, and a life steeped in greed could diminish these vital connections, leading to increased rates of depression and feelings of worthlessness. 3. Cognitive dissonance. Greed can create a disconnect between an individual's values and actions. Those who act out of greed often find themselves at odds with their moral compass. Reconciling this dissonance can induce stress and anxiety, further negatively impacting mental well-being. Behavioral implications. 1. Unhealthy coping mechanisms. Individuals driven by greed may resort to unhealthy coping strategies, such as substance abuse, overeating, or engaging in high-risk behaviors. The stress and pressure associated with the pursuit of wealth can lead to the use of alcohol or drugs as a means to cope, which can result in addiction, further health complications, and the deterioration of one's personal and professional life. 2. Neglecting self-care. The insatiable pursuit of money or status often leads individuals to neglect their physical health. Compulsive work habits can result in missed opportunities for exercise, poor dietary choices, and diminished sleep quality, all of which contribute to physical health problems over time. Social implications. 1. Interpersonal relationships. Greed can erode trust and foster competition among peers, family, or colleagues. As relationships become transactional, the emotional support and care intrinsic to healthy relationships decrease, leading to a rise in feelings of resentment, jealousy, and frustration. 2. Work environment. A culture of greed within workplaces can lead to high levels of stress and job dissatisfaction. Employees may feel overworked or undervalued, leading to burnout, which not only affects mental health but can also manifest in physical ailments, such as headaches, gastrointestinal issues, and cardiovascular problems. Societal implications. 1. Systemic disparities and inequality. On a larger scale, pervasive greed can exacerbate social inequalities. The relentless pursuit of wealth can lead to exploitative practices, environmental degradation, and other societal harms. This systemic greed leads to a cycle where marginalized communities suffer disproportionately, resulting in poorer health outcomes compared to affluent populations. 2. Environmental health. Greed-driven industries often prioritize profit over sustainability. This not only contributes to ecological harm but also has direct health impacts on communities affected by pollution, poor working conditions, and decreased access to clean resources. As environmental degradation progresses, public health crises can emerge, further indicating how greed operates beyond individual experience. Reflection and conclusion. Exploring the implications of greed on personal health offers a profound insight into the interconnectedness of human behavior, societal structure, and individual well-being. It exemplifies how a single trait can ripple through various dimensions of life, impacting not just the individual, but also those around them. 1. Self-awareness. Recognizing one's tendencies towards greed and understanding its detrimental effects can cultivate greater self-awareness. This awareness might inspire healthier lifestyle choices, prioritize mental and physical well-being, and promote fulfilling interpersonal relationships. 2. Reevaluating values. Individuals can benefit from reconsidering what truly constitutes success and fulfillment. Emphasizing intrinsic values such as health, well-being, and personal development over extrinsic rewards like wealth can reshape motivations and lead to more balanced, meaningful lives. 3. Fostering community and support. Building environments that prioritize cooperation over competition can combat the isolating effects of greed. Supporting one another not only fosters healthier relationships, but can provide meaningful connections that enhance mental and physical health. Greed, particularly in the context of sexual marriages and relationships, can manifest in various forms, influencing dynamics in both positive and negative ways. Understanding these implications prompts us to examine not only personal motives and behaviors, but also broader relational consequences. Here's a comprehensive exploration of how greed may play a role in romantic relationships. 1. Desire for control and power. In some relationships, greed can manifest as a desire for control or dominance over a partner. This can lead to issues such as manipulative behaviors. One partner may use greed as a tool to manipulate the other, whether by leveraging financial resources, emotional support, or intimacy. This imbalance creates a toxic relational environment where one partner feels obligated to comply with the other's desires. Erosion of autonomy. Such dynamics can lead to a loss of individual autonomy, causing one partner to feel trapped or dependent on the other. This interplay of power can result in resentment and a lack of genuine intimacy, undermining the foundation of the relationship. 2. Materialistic motivations for relationships. Greed can influence the motivations behind entering or staying in a relationship. This may manifest in transactional relationships. Some individuals may seek partners primarily for material benefits rather than emotional connection. This can create a scenario where intimacy is compromised, and relationships become more about what one partner can provide materially rather than emotionally or psychologically. Perpetuating stereotypes. Materialistic motivations can reinforce societal stereotypes, where individuals prioritize wealth or status over emotional depth and compatibility. This can lead to disappointment and disillusionment when superficial aspects are revealed to be insufficient for a lasting relationship. 3. Jealousy and possessiveness. Greed can foster jealousy and possessiveness, impacting sexual relationships in significant ways. Insecurity. A greedy mindset may stem from insecurity, leading one partner to feel threatened by potential rivals. This can manifest as excessive jealousy or control over the partner's social interactions, stifling their freedom and autonomy. Impact on sexual satisfaction. Jealousy fueled by greed can hinder open communication about sexual needs and desires, resulting in dissatisfaction. If one partner is always preoccupied with what they might lose, it undermines the ability to appreciate and enjoy their sexual connection. 4. Unrealistic expectations and comparisons. Greed can also skew one's expectations of relationships and intimacy. Comparative culture. In a culture that often emphasizes comparing romantic partnerships, be it through social media portrayals of perfect couples or societal narratives around love and wealth, individuals may develop unrealistic expectations. This can lead to dissatisfaction and a sense of inadequacy, even within healthy relationships. Constant pursuit of more. A greedy mindset can foster a desire for constant novelty in sexual relationships, potentially undermining committed connections. This pursuit of more can manifest in seeking new partners, experiences, or fantasies, often at the expense of emotional connection. 5. Selfishness versus reciprocity. Greed can influence the balance of give and take in sexual relationships. Self-centeredness in intimacy. Partners driven by greed may prioritize their own sexual pleasure and desires over their partner's needs. This selfish approach can result in emotional and physical discontent, diminishing the quality of the sexual relationship. Lack of reciprocity. Healthy intimate relationships thrive on reciprocity. However, a greedy outlook can lead to one partner feeling unfulfilled or neglected. The desire to take without giving can lead to emotional withdrawal and eventual relationship breakdown as resentment builds. 6. Sexual exploitation and abuse. In extreme cases, greed can lead to exploitative behaviors within sexual relationships. Exploitation. Some individuals may use relationships as a means to exploit their partners sexually, treating them as commodities rather than as partners with their own autonomy and needs. This can occur in dynamics where one partner is significantly more powerful, financially or otherwise, than the other. Coerced intimacy. Greed can manifest in coercive relationships where one partner may manipulate the other into sexual situations for financial gain, emotional control, or social status. This exploitation not only harms the victim, but can leave lasting psychological scars. The positive side of greed in relationships. While the ramifications of greed in relationships often carry negative connotations, it's also essential to recognize that the desire for growth, knowledge, and shared experiences can lead to positive outcomes. Ambition and motivation for growth. A healthy version of greed can translate into ambition within a relationship, driving partners to seek out new experiences, deepen intimacy, and expand their understanding of each other. An energized pursuit to learn and grow together can foster a more fulfilled and dynamic relationship. Desire for pleasure and connection. A vibrant sexual relationship often involves a mutual desire for pleasure. If both partners approach intimacy with a mindset of abundance, seeking to give joy and receive joy, this can lead to more fulfilling and enriched sexual experiences. Conclusion. The implications of greed in sexual marriages and relationships are complex, characterized by a spectrum of potential outcomes ranging from harmful to beneficial. Understanding the nuances of how greed can manifest, whether as a desire for power, material gain, unrealistic expectations, or transactional dynamics, encourages individuals to focus on fostering healthy, reciprocal interactions based on mutual respect and authenticity. Ultimately, examining these dimensions challenges us to reflect on our desires, motivations, and the overall health of our relationships, fostering a more equitable and satisfying connection with ourselves and our partners. It encourages us to think critically about the kinds of relationships we cultivate and the values we prioritize in navigating our intimate lives. In a world driven by materialistic pursuits, contemplating the implications of greed urges us to seek out healthier, more fulfilling ways to define our goals and aspirations, reinforcing the holistic connection between mind, body, and society. This reflective process encourages us to think deeply about what we value and how our pursuits align with our long-term health and happiness. In summary, greed is a complex aspect of human nature that has evolved over time, influenced by psychological, cultural, and historical factors. While it may have served a purpose in early human survival, its manifestations in contemporary society often lead to negative outcomes. Understanding the nature of greed is essential for addressing its impacts on individuals and communities alike. Chapter 7 Is Greed Necessary? The inquiry into whether greed can be necessary invites a thoughtful and nuanced exploration of human motivations, societal structures, and personal aspirations. Greed, often characterized as an excessive desire for more, whether it be wealth, power, or resources, has primarily been viewed in a negative light. However, when examining the complexities of human behavior and societal functioning, it may be helpful to consider under what circumstances greed might serve a purpose or drive positive outcomes. 1. Motivation for achievement. Ambition and drive. Greed can sometimes manifest as ambition. The desire for success and the betterment of one's circumstances can spur individuals on to achieve their goals. In this light, what is often labeled as greed may instead be a natural desire for improvement and fulfillment. This kind of motivation can lead to significant personal and professional achievements, and contributes to a culture of innovation and production. Economic growth. On a macroeconomic level, capitalist societies often rely on the notion of self-interest as a motivating factor for production. Greedy behavior in this context can lead to entrepreneurial ventures, job creation, and economic expansion. The desire to succeed financially can drive individuals and companies to innovate, ultimately benefiting society through new products, services, and solutions. 2. Enhancing quality of life. Pursuit of better living conditions. Greed may incentivize individuals to strive for a better quality of life for themselves and their families. This pursuit can enhance living conditions, including access to education, healthcare, and cultural experiences. The drive for more can fuel aspirations that lead to significant life improvements, benefiting families and communities. Increased standards. Greed can contribute to raising the overall standards of living within societies. When individuals pursue personal gain, this can result in better technology, improved infrastructure, and overall progress. The competitive spirit nurtured by greed can lead to advancements that elevate the collective quality of life. 3. Catalyst for competition and collaboration. Competition as a driver of excellence. Greed can create a competitive environment that pushes individuals and organizations to perform at higher levels. This competition often drives innovation and excellence, motivating entities to develop better products and services. In this sense, a certain level of greed can stimulate improvement within various industries. Collaboration for mutual gain. Interestingly, greed can also drive partnerships and collaborations when individuals or organizations seek to leverage each other's strengths for mutual benefit. In negotiations, the desire for personal gain can result in compromise and collaboration to create win-win scenarios, thereby fostering cooperative relationships. 4. Fostering self-reflection and growth. Awareness of desires. Reflecting on one's desires, including those fueled by greed, can promote self-awareness and personal growth. By understanding one's insatiable urges, individuals may find opportunities to align their ambitions with their values and ethical considerations. This introspection can lead to more fulfilling pursuits and connections. Re-evaluating values. Greed can spur conversations and reflections around what truly matters in one's life. It may prompt a reassessment of priorities and values, ultimately guiding individuals away from harmful excess and toward more meaningful goals. 5. Potential downsides and paradoxes. While it's possible to identify instances where greed might yield necessary or beneficial outcomes, it is crucial to recognize the potential downsides that accompany greed. Subversion of ethics. Greed often blurs the lines of morality and ethics. The pursuit of self-interest can lead to unethical decisions, exploitation, and harm to others. Unchecked greed can result in corporate scandals, environmental destruction, and social inequality. Deterioration of relationships. The drive for personal gain at the expense of others can erode trust and mutual respect in relationships. Relationships nurtured by greed can become transactional, lacking depth and authenticity. Psychological effects. The pursuit of excess can lead to psychological distress. The burden of chasing insatiable desires often results in stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction as individuals grapple with the realization that material wealth or power does not equate to happiness or fulfillment. In conclusion, while greed is often viewed and experienced negatively, its implications can vary based on context and manifestation. Greed can drive ambition and success, promote competition, and even enhance quality of life. However, it also carries risks, including ethical dilemmas, relationship strain, and potential personal upheaval. The challenge, therefore, is not to eliminate greed but to find balance, cultivating healthy ambition, while remaining aware of its potential to overshadow moral and ethical considerations. By fostering a mindset of abundance and recognizing the importance of community and collaboration, individuals can navigate the complexities of greed in ways that are constructive rather than destructive. In this logical examination, the key lies in understanding that while certain aspects of greed may be necessary or beneficial, vigilance and conscious reflection are essential to mitigate its potential harm. Recognizing when ambition becomes greed allows individuals and societies to harness the positive aspects of desire while keeping in check the more detrimental consequences of excess. Chapter 8. Modern greed. Modern greed, particularly in its most excessive forms, illuminates several significant issues in contemporary society that may hinder sustainable innovation and long-term progress. Here are a few key points that explain why this kind of greed can potentially undermine a sustainable future. 1. Short-term focus over long-term solutions. Profit maximization. Companies driven by greed often prioritize immediate profits over long-term sustainability. This focus can lead to decisions that maximize short-term financial gains, such as cost-cutting measures that may sacrifice product quality, employee welfare, or ethical practices. Such decisions can stifle innovation, as businesses become more concerned with maintaining existing systems rather than investing in research and development for future growth. Neglect of sustainable practices. Greed can result in an aversion to investing in environmentally friendly technologies and sustainable practices. Companies may avoid necessary shifts toward sustainability due to the perceived high initial costs, leading to an overall stagnation in innovation needed to address pressing global challenges such as climate change. 2. Inequality and lack of opportunity. Concentration of wealth. Modern greed often results in the concentration of wealth among a small elite, leading to economic inequalities. This disparity can hinder overall societal progress as it limits access to resources, education, and opportunities for a significant portion of the population. When large segments of society are excluded from contributing to or benefiting from innovation, the potential for new ideas and advancements diminishes. Underutilization of talent. A society that emphasizes greed and wealth concentration may overlook the talents and contributions of individuals from diverse backgrounds. This restricted access to opportunities for many capable individuals stifles innovation, as fresh perspectives and ideas are not adequately represented or nurtured. 3. Erosion of trust and collaboration. Deterioration of relationships. Greed can weaken trust between consumers and businesses, as well as among colleagues and collaborators. When individuals or organizations prioritize their interests relentlessly, it fosters an environment of skepticism and competition rather than collaboration. Innovation thrives in environments where ideas can be freely exchanged, and trust flourishes. Greed disrupts this dynamic. Resistance to change. A greed-driven mindset may lead to reluctance in embracing change or considering alternative approaches. Organizations focused solely on self-interest may resist necessary adaptations and innovations, fearing disruption to their current profitability. This can leave them ill-equipped to respond to emerging trends or challenges. 4. Undermining of ethical standards. Ethical compromises. Greed often leads to ethical compromises, where companies prioritize winning at all costs over integrity. Such ethical lapses can result in scandals, loss of consumer trust, and regulatory scrutiny, while innovation requires risk-taking. Reckless behaviors motivated by greed can have severe consequences on reputations and long-term viability. Impacts on brand loyalty and reputation. When companies are perceived as greedy or unethical, they risk damaging their reputations and losing loyal customers. Sustainable success in innovation depends on a company's ability to nurture a strong, trust-based relationship with its stakeholders, thus highlighting how greed undermines public trust and ultimately impacts long-term success. 5. Environmental degradation. Resource exploitation. Greed can lead to unsustainable extraction and consumption of natural resources, resulting in environmental degradation. This poses threats to ecosystems, biodiversity, and the very resources necessary for future innovation. A pattern of exploitation detracts from efforts to develop sustainable technologies and solutions. Climate change ignorance. Many greed-driven practices contribute to climate change, as companies prioritize profit over social responsibility. The resulting environmental crises necessitate urgent innovative solutions. However, if businesses remain focused on greed, they may neglect their role in developing sustainable practices that address climate change. Modern greed has occasionally led companies down the path of bankruptcy or significant business collapse. Here are a few notable examples where greed-driven decisions contributed to failure. 1. Enron Corporation headline: Enron's collapse, a cautionary tale of corporate greed. Situation. Enron was once one of the largest energy companies in the world, renowned for its innovative approach in the energy sector. However, driven by an insatiable thirst for profits and stock price increases, the company engaged in widespread accounting fraud to hide debt and inflate profits. Executives used complex financial structures to hide losses, enriching themselves at the expense of shareholders and employees. Ultimately, when the truth surfaced, Enron filed for bankruptcy, leading to massive financial losses for investors, the collapse of the accounting firm Arthur Andersen, and sweeping reforms in corporate governance and accounting practices. 2. Lehman Brothers headline: Lehman Brothers, the Wall Street giant brought down by greed. Situation. Lehman Brothers was a leading global financial services firm that became a significant player in the mortgage-backed securities market. In the years leading to the 2008 financial crisis, the firm, driven by the desire for higher profits, engaged in increasingly risky real estate investments and leveraged itself excessively. When the housing bubble burst, Lehman Brothers could not sustain itself under the weight of its bad assets and went bankrupt in September 2008. This collapse played a significant role in triggering the global financial crisis, showcasing how a culture of greed and risk-taking can lead to catastrophic outcomes for an institution and the wider economy. 3. Blockbuster LLC headline: The fall of Blockbuster, how greed stifled innovation. Situation. Blockbuster was once the dominant video rental chain in the United States. However, driven by a greedy focus on maintaining high rental fees and late fees, the company failed to adapt to the rapidly changing market influenced by emerging technologies and consumer preferences toward streaming services like Netflix. Instead of investing in innovation or embracing the digital transition, Blockbuster's leadership opted for short-term profit strategies, which ultimately led to its bankruptcy in 2010. Their unwillingness to pivot and adapt, coupled with a greed-driven approach to maximizing revenue from late fees, played a significant role in the company's demise. 4. Toys R Us headline: Toys R Us fails to adapt, a legacy of greed and mismanagement. Situation: Toys R Us was a leading toy retailer for decades but succumbed to bankruptcy in 2018. The company became burdened with a significant amount of debt from a leveraged buyout in 2005, driven by greed for immediate financial gain. This debt hindered its ability to compete effectively with online retailers like Amazon, and also stifled necessary investments in its physical stores and e-commerce capabilities. As consumer preferences shifted towards online shopping, Toys R Us could not adapt due to financial constraints. Ultimately, the company declared bankruptcy and closed all its U.S. stores, marking a significant failure in adapting to changing market dynamics. 5. WeWork headline: WeWork's fall from grace, greed and recklessness derailed a startup giant. Situation: WeWork, a co-working space provider, expanded aggressively with a business model driven by rapid growth and a quest for an ever-increasing valuation. Under CEO Adam Neumann, the company pursued ambitious goals without a sustainable financial model, promoting a culture of excess and extravagance that reflected a greed-driven pursuit of market dominance. When the company attempted to go public in 2019, its initial public offering paperwork revealed staggering losses, excessive spending, and questionable management practices. This led to a swift backlash from investors, Neumann's ousting, and the company's eventual devaluation. WeWork subsequently scaled back its operations significantly, showcasing how unchecked ambition and greed can lead to a dramatic fall. These examples exemplify how greed, often reflected in short-term thinking, risk-taking, and a failure to adapt to changing markets, can contribute to significant business collapses. The desire for immediate gains can cloud judgment, leading organizations to neglect long-term sustainability and ethical practices, ultimately resulting in their downfall. In summary, modern greed poses significant barriers to sustainable innovation and a healthy societal future. Its inclination toward short-term gains, concentration of wealth, erosion of trust, ethical compromises, and environmental degradation ultimately stifles potential and hinders progress. For long-lasting innovation and a sustainable future, it is crucial to foster a mindset that values collaboration, ethical practices, and inclusive opportunities. Encouraging responsible practices and a culture of innovation based on shared goals rather than individual greed is essential for navigating the complexities of the modern world effectively. Chapter 9. Reducing greed. Reducing greed, or the excessive desire for more than one needs or deserves, can lead to substantial benefits in various aspects of life, including finances and overall health. Here's a breakdown of why one can be less greedy, the benefits of doing so, and the overall impact on well-being. Understanding greed. Definition: greed is an intense and selfish desire for something, particularly wealth, power, or food. It often involves a lack of concern for others' well-being. Reasons to be less greedy. 1. Cultivating gratitude. Practicing gratitude can shift the focus from what one lacks to what one has, inherently reducing the urge to acquire more. 2. Fostering contentment. Finding joy in what you already possess can diminish the constant striving associated with greed. 3. Encouraging generosity. Engaging in acts of kindness and generosity can redirect the focus from self-interest to the welfare of others, encouraging a more community-oriented mindset. Mindfulness and self-awareness. Developing a mindfulness practice can help in recognizing greedy thoughts and behaviors, allowing for better impulse control. Financial benefits of reducing greed. 1. Improved financial management. Greed often leads to impulsive spending and poor financial decisions. By being less greedy, individuals can focus on budgeting, saving, and investing sensibly. Setting realistic and manageable financial goals becomes easier when one is not driven by a relentless pursuit of wealth. 2. Avoidance of debt. Greedy behaviors can lead to excessive borrowing to maintain an expensive lifestyle. Reducing greed can help individuals live within their means, ultimately avoiding debt. 3. Better investment choices. A greedy mindset may push individuals to chase high-risk investments or get-rich-quick schemes. A more conservative approach, informed by sound financial principles, can lead to more sustainable wealth growth. 4. Long-term wealth building. People who understand the value of patience and delayed gratification are more likely to invest for the long term and accumulate wealth over time. Overall health benefits of reducing greed. 1. Reduce stress and anxiety. Greed can lead to an unending cycle of stress over acquiring more. A less greedy mindset can alleviate anxiety and foster a sense of peace and satisfaction. 2. Better relationships. Greed often leads to feelings of isolation and mistrust. By being less greedy, one can build stronger, healthier relationships based on trust, empathy, and mutual support. 3. Enhanced emotional well-being. Surrendering that need for more can lead to greater happiness. Contentment and gratitude have been linked with improved mental health outcomes. 4. Holistic well-being. Focusing on non-material aspects of life, such as experiences and relationships, provides a deeper sense of fulfillment than material wealth alone. Elimination of greed. A comprehensive breakdown. 1. Personal development. Overcoming greed helps individuals focus on self-improvement, education, and skills development rather than accumulating materials. 2. Social responsibility. Less greed can lead to greater awareness and participation in community welfare and social causes, thereby creating a positive impact on society. 3. Environmental sustainability. A less greedy approach encourages more sustainable consumption and respect for resources, benefiting the planet and future generations. 4. Legacy and fulfillment. Individuals who practice moderation often leave a legacy of kindness and generosity, which can be more fulfilling than material success alone. 5. Integration of values. By prioritizing values over possessions such as integrity, loyalty, and compassion, one can lead a more meaningful and purpose-driven life. Reducing greed in relation to racism involves addressing the underlying attitudes and behaviors that manifest in societal inequalities and prejudices. Racism often stems from a desire for power, control, and resources at the expense of marginalized groups. Therefore, tackling this issue requires a multifaceted approach that promotes equity, understanding, and compassion. Here are some strategies to reduce greed as it relates to racism. 1. Educate yourself and others. Awareness of historical context, understanding the historical roots of racism and its economic impacts, can expose the reasons behind current inequities and the greed that underlies them. Engage in conversations. Encourage open dialogues about race and racism. Sharing perspectives can lead to greater understanding and empathy, reducing the notion of scarcity that fuels racist attitudes. 2. Promote empathy and compassion. Perspective taking. Put yourself in the shoes of marginalized individuals to understand their struggles. This can reduce feelings of superiority often tied to greed for power or status. Volunteer and engage. Participate in community service or activism that supports marginalized communities. This fosters connection and reduces the us versus them mentality. 3. Challenge stereotypes and bias. Confront prejudice when encountering racist attitudes or jokes. Speak up. Challenging these behaviors reduces the normalization of greed for power or societal dominance. Diverse narratives. Support media, literature, and art that reflect diverse experiences. This helps counteract greedy narratives that conform to stereotypes. 4. Support policies for equity. Advocate for fair policies. Promote policies that address systemic inequalities, such as equitable access to education, healthcare, and employment. This reduces the greed that manifests in maintaining power and privilege. Engage in activism. Support movements that seek to dismantle institutional racism. This collective approach helps to create a more equitable society for everyone. 5. Foster community engagement. Build inclusive spaces. Create environments where diverse voices are heard and valued. This reduces the monopolization of resources by a select few based on racial lines. Facilitate dialogue. Organize community forums that allow for discussions on race, privilege, and equity. These dialogues can encourage mutual understanding and collaboration. 6. Practice mindfulness and self-reflection. Examine personal biases. Engage in self-reflection to identify personal biases and attitudes that perpetuate racism. Acknowledging these biases can help foster growth and reduce greed for social dominance. Mindfulness practices. Incorporate mindfulness techniques to develop a sense of unity and interconnectedness, countering the individualistic mindset that often accompanies greed. 7. Encourage generosity. Support minority-owned businesses. Actively seek out and support businesses owned by minorities. This not only helps reduce economic disparities but also fosters community solidarity. Contribute to resources. Donate time or resources to organizations fighting against racism and inequality. This act of giving counters the desire to hoard wealth or resources. 8. Connect the dots between racism and economic disparities. Understand economic inequality. Recognize how systemic racism leads to economic inequality and how greed at an institutional level has historically marginalized communities of color. Promote economic justice. Support initiatives aimed at closing the wealth gap among racial and ethnic groups, encouraging fair distribution of resources. Reducing greed in the context of racism requires a commitment to education, empathy, and advocacy for equity. By working to dismantle systems that allow for the hoarding of power and resources, individuals can contribute to a more just society. It's about transforming the mindset from one of competition and scarcity to one of cooperation, abundance, and shared humanity. Addressing greed in relation to racism is not just about personal change, it's a collective effort necessary to foster real societal transformation. In summary, reducing greed can provide a wealth of benefits that enhance financial stability and overall health. It fosters a mindset of gratitude and contentment, improves relationships, and contributes to personal and social well-being. By embracing these values and letting go of excessive desires, individuals can cultivate a richer, more fulfilling life. Becoming less greedy is a personal journey that often involves self-reflection, mindfulness, and intentional changes in behavior. Here are some strategies to help reduce feelings of greed. 1. Self-reflection. Take time to understand the root causes of your greed. Are you trying to fill a void, seeking validation, or influenced by societal pressures? Journaling or meditative practices can help clarify your motivations. 2. Practice gratitude. Cultivate a habit of gratitude by regularly reflecting on what you are thankful for. This shift in focus can help you appreciate what you have instead of longing for more. 3. Set altruistic goals. Engage in activities that benefit others, such as volunteering, donating, or helping those in need. This can shift your perspective from self-interest to collective well-being. 4. Mindfulness and awareness. Practice mindfulness to become more aware of your thoughts and behaviors. Recognizing greedy impulses as they arise can help you manage them more effectively. 5. Limit exposure. Reduce your consumption of media that promotes consumerism and materialism. Surrounding yourself with positive influences can help reshape your mindset. 6. Focus on experiences, not possessions. Shift your focus from acquiring material goods to seeking memorable experiences. Research suggests that experiences often bring more lasting happiness than possessions. 7. Set boundaries. Establish clear goals related to wealth and possessions, and stick to them. This might include budgeting, limiting unnecessary purchases, or deciding not to engage in competitive consumption. 8. Cultivate empathy. Try to see situations from others' perspectives. Understanding the struggles of others can make you more aware of the impact of greed and inspire a shift toward generosity. 9. Educate yourself. Read books or attend workshops on personal development, mindfulness, or ethical living. Developing a deeper understanding of self and societal values can promote a more balanced approach to life. 10. Seek guidance. Consider talking to a therapist or life coach who can provide tools and techniques tailored to your specific situation and help you work through feelings of greed. Remember, change takes time, and being patient with yourself is essential as you work through these feelings. A few ways to reduce workplace greed. Also, reducing greed in the workplace involves fostering a more collaborative, ethical, and generous work environment. Here are some strategies to help you or your colleagues be less greedy at work. 1. Promote teamwork. Focus on collaboration rather than competition. Encourage team projects and share credit for successes. Celebrating collective achievements shifts the focus from individual accolades to shared goals. 2. Set a positive example. Model altruistic behavior by being generous with your time, resources, and knowledge. When leaders and team members demonstrate selflessness, it encourages others to follow suit. 3. Encourage open communication. Create an environment where employees feel comfortable expressing needs and concerns. Open dialogues can reduce feelings of self-interest and promote a culture of support. 4. Implement fair practices. Advocate for fair compensation and recognition practices. Transparency in promotions, raises, and credit distribution can help diminish feelings of greed among those who feel undervalued. 5. Foster a culture of gratitude. Encourage team members to acknowledge and appreciate each other's contributions. Regularly expressing gratitude can shift the focus from what one lacks to what is already available. 6. Engage in corporate social responsibility. Encourage participation in CSR initiatives that give back to the community. Being involved in charitable activities can foster a sense of connectedness and reduce greed. 7. Limit competition. Reevaluate performance metrics that overly emphasize individual accomplishments. Instead, incorporate team-based metrics that focus on collective success. 8. Encourage generosity. Promote mentoring and knowledge sharing within the workplace. Encourage experienced employees to help others develop their skills, which fosters a sense of community. 9. Be mindful of language. The way individuals speak about success and achievement can influence workplace culture. Use language that emphasizes collective goals and team achievements rather than individual gain. 10. Provide training. Offer workshops on emotional intelligence, ethical decision-making, and teamwork. Helping employees understand the importance of these skills can promote a less greedy mindset. 11. Recognize and address burnout. Often, greed stems from feeling undervalued or overworked. Addressing burnout can help team members focus on collaboration rather than competition as a means to gain recognition. 12. Establish clear values. Create or reinforce a set of organizational values that emphasizes integrity, collaboration, and community. Make sure these values are reflected in policies and practices. By creating a work environment that values cooperation, transparency, and gratitude, individuals can cultivate less greedy behaviors and contribute to a more positive workplace culture. Chapter 10. A world of greed. A world of greed refers to a societal condition where individuals prioritize their own self-interest and material gain, often at the expense of others or the collective good. This can manifest in various ways, including excessive consumerism, exploitation of resources, unethical business practices, social inequality, and a lack of consideration for the well-being of others. In such a world, behaviors and values that prioritize material wealth and personal success take precedence over community, ethics, and sustainability. Understanding a world of greed. 1. Materialism and consumerism. In a world of greed, consumption becomes a primary indicator of success and happiness. People may feel pressured to acquire more goods, status, or wealth, often leading to overconsumption and waste. 2. Inequality. Greed can lead to significant disparities in wealth and resources. Those who prioritize their interests may accumulate wealth, while others may struggle to meet basic needs. 3. Exploitation. Greed can foster environments where individuals or corporations exploit others for their own benefit, whether through unfair labor practices, environmental degradation, or other means. 4. Corruption and unethical behavior. In pursuit of personal gain, individuals and organizations may engage in corrupt practices, such as bribery, fraud, or deceit, further perpetuating a cycle of mistrust and ethical erosion. 5. Impact on relationships. A focus on personal gain can erode trust and cooperation within communities and workplaces, leading to isolation, conflict, and a lack of collaboration. Learning about a world of greed. Listeners can learn about the concept of a world of greed through various avenues. 1. Reading literature, books, articles, and essays on economic systems, human psychology, and ethics can provide insights into the roots and consequences of greed. 2. Case studies, examining real-world examples such as corporate scandals, environmental crises, and economic inequalities, can illustrate the effects of greed on society. 3. Documentaries and films. Visual storytelling can powerfully convey the complexities of greed, showing its impacts on individuals and communities. 4. Discussion and debate. Engaging in conversations or debate about greed, ethics, and economics in educational settings can deepen understanding and foster critical thinking. 5. Workshops and seminars. Participating in discussions led by experts in sociology, economics, or ethics can provide structured insights on the implications of greed. Logical reasons behind greed. 1. Survival instinct. At a fundamental level, greed can be tied to survival mechanisms. In ancestral environments, accumulating resources could have meant greater chances of survival. 2. Social validation. In many cultures, success is often measured by wealth and status. This societal pressure can drive individuals to act greedily to achieve validation and acceptance. 3. Fear of scarcity. Fear of not having enough, whether it's money, status, or resources, can create a mindset of scarcity that promotes greed as a defensive mechanism. 4. Psychological factors. Certain psychological traits, such as narcissism or low empathy, can predispose individuals to prioritize their own needs over those of others. 5. Cultural and economic systems. Capitalist societies often reward competitive behaviors and individualism, which can exacerbate greedy behaviors. Systems that emphasize profit maximization may encourage unethical practices. 6. Influence of media and advertising. Constant exposure to messages that equate success with wealth and consumption can shape desires and priorities, promoting a culture of greed. By understanding the dynamics of greed and its broader implications, individuals can become more aware of their own behaviors and the societal systems that contribute to greed, motivating personal and collective change toward more equitable and generous practices. World greed can indeed be closely tied to feelings of insecurity, both on individual and societal levels. Below are several ways in which greed can stem from or exacerbate insecurity. 1. Fear of scarcity. Inherent instinct greed often arises from a fear that resources are limited. Individuals may feel insecure about their financial future or the stability of their career, prompting them to accumulate wealth or possessions as a form of insurance against potential hardships. Response to uncertainty and uncertain economic conditions, such as recessions or job insecurity, people might hoard resources to feel more secure. This behavior can perpetuate a cycle of greed, as individuals prioritize what they perceive as their personal survival over the collective good. 2. Validation and self-worth. Societal pressure. Many cultures equate success with material wealth and status. Individuals may pursue greed to secure validation from others or to feel a sense of worth. Imposter syndrome. Even successful individuals may fear being perceived as inadequate or unworthy. This can lead them to seek greater accumulation of wealth or status to prove themselves, driven by an underlying insecurity about their abilities or accomplishments. 3. Competition and comparison. Social comparison theory. People often compare themselves to others to gauge their own success and belonging. When individuals perceive themselves as falling behind socially or economically, they may become greedy as a way to elevate their status. Fear of being left behind. The desire to keep up with the Joneses can lead to excessive competition, where one's self-esteem is tied to material possessions and achievements. This competitiveness may mask deeper insecurities about one's identity or social standing. 4. Emotional and psychological factors. Low self-esteem. Individuals with low self-esteem may seek material possessions as a way to bolster their self-image. The accumulation of wealth might temporarily alleviate feelings of inadequacy, but fails to address the root of the insecurity. Narcissism. People who exhibit narcissistic traits may engage in greedy behaviors to maintain a facade of superiority and control. In reality, their need to project a confident image often stems from profound insecurities. 5. Environmental and cultural influences. Cultural norms. Societal norms that glorify wealth and success can lead to an environment where greed becomes a common response to insecurity. When these values are internalized, individuals may feel compelled to behave greedily to feel accepted. Economic systems, capitalist structures that prioritize profit over people, can cultivate insecurity among individuals. When success is seen as a zero-sum game where someone else's gain is perceived as a loss for oneself, it leads to socially destructive behaviors driven by greed. 6. Lack of trust. Distrust in institutions. In regions where political or economic institutions are perceived as corrupt or unreliable, individuals may feel the need to amass personal resources out of fear that they cannot rely on societal systems for support. Social isolation. In a competitive, greedy environment, individuals may become isolated, undermining community trust and support structures. This isolation can cause further insecurity, thus perpetuating the cycle of greed. The lasting effects of world greed can have profound implications for individuals, societies, and global systems. These effects can be observed in various domains, including social, economic, environmental, and psychological spheres. Here are some of the significant and enduring consequences. 1. Economic inequality. Wealth disparities. Greed often leads to significant economic inequalities, where wealth concentrates in the hands of a few while others struggle to meet basic needs. This inequality can create persistent socioeconomic divides that hinder social mobility and opportunity. Corruption. Greed can foster corruption within both public and private sectors, leading to a lack of trust in institutions and governance. Corruption can drain resources from essential public services, leading to long-term harm to communities. 2. Environmental degradation. Resource exploitation. Greed often drives the unsustainable exploitation of natural resources, forests, water, minerals, leading to environmental degradation, loss of biodiversity, and depletion of ecosystems. Climate change. Overconsumption, driven by greed, contributes significantly to climate change through increased greenhouse gas emissions and waste. This global crisis can lead to lasting changes in weather patterns, rising sea levels, and extreme weather events. 3. Social disintegration. Erosion of trust. In a society where greed prevails, trust between individuals decreases. This erosion can lead to greater social fragmentation, where individuals become more self-interested, leading to a lack of community cohesion and collaboration. Mental health issues. The societal focus on material success and competition can lead to increased stress, anxiety, and mental health problems. People may experience feelings of inadequacy or isolation when they cannot keep up with societal expectations related to wealth. 4. Reduced quality of life. Consumerism over well-being. In a greed-driven culture, there may be an emphasis on acquiring more goods rather than enhancing overall well-being. This can result in a reduced quality of life, where experiences of joy and fulfillment are overlooked in favor of material accumulation. Diminished values. As greed takes root, ethical considerations may be sidelined. Core human values such as compassion, cooperation, and altruism can erode, leading to a society that prioritizes profit over people. 5. Deterioration of political systems. Populism and division. Greed can give rise to populist movements and increased political polarization. Distrust in elite institutions may lead to increased division, as people react against perceived injustices by affluent or greedy groups. Policy corruption. Political systems may become corrupted by the influence of wealthy elites, leading to policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many. This undermines democracy and the ability of governments to address public needs. 6. Global instability. Conflict and violence. Competition for resources driven by greed can lead to conflict, both between nations and within communities. Struggles over land, water, and minerals can exacerbate tensions and contribute to violence, migration, and displacement. Economic disparities fueled by greed can lead to mass migration, with individuals seeking better opportunities elsewhere. This can create refugee crises and strain resources in host countries, resulting in conflict and social unrest. 7. Long-term cultural changes. Shift in values. A greed-centric world can lead to a cultural shift that prioritizes material success over altruism, social responsibility, and community well-being. Future generations may inherit these values, further entrenching a culture of greed. Normalization of corruption. If greed-driven behaviors become normalized, they may be viewed as acceptable or even necessary in various sectors, eroding ethical standards and leading to a cycle of corruption and selfishness. The lasting effects of world greed extend far beyond individual behaviors, impacting economic systems, social structures, environmental health, and overall quality of life. By recognizing these consequences, societies can take steps to address greed-driven behaviors and foster a more equitable, collaborative, and sustainable world. Addressing the root causes of greed and promoting values such as empathy, responsible consumption, and community support can help mitigate these lasting effects and create a more harmonious future. In summary, greed can be both a product and a perpetuator of insecurity. Individuals often pursue material wealth and status to alleviate feelings of inadequacy, fear, or uncertainty. This behavior can create a vicious cycle, where greed leads to social isolation, heightened competition, and an unfulfilled quest for validation, further exacerbating underlying insecurities. Addressing insecurity requires fostering a culture of trust, support, and collaboration, allowing individuals to seek fulfillment from relationships and community, rather than material possessions alone. Chapter 11. Inflation and greed. Inflation and greed are interconnected in various complex ways, affecting economies, individual behaviors, and societal norms. Understanding their relationship requires an exploration of how each concept operates independently, and how they can exacerbate each other. Here's a comprehensive analysis of this interplay. 1. Understanding inflation. Definition: inflation refers to the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services rises, eroding purchasing power. Central banks may manage inflation through monetary policy, but various factors can drive it, including demand-pull inflation, cost-push inflation, and built-in inflation. Causes: demand-pull inflation occurs when demand for goods and services exceeds supply, leading to price increases. This can happen during economic booms when consumer confidence is high. Cost-push inflation results from an increase in the cost of production, leading producers to raise prices to maintain profit margins. Monetary policy: central banks may increase the money supply to stimulate the economy or combat recession, which can lead to inflation if not matched by economic growth. Two. Understanding greed. Definition: greed is an intense and selfish desire for something, typically wealth or power. It often prompts individuals or corporations to prioritize their own accumulation of resources over the well-being of others or society. Manifestations: corporate greed. Businesses may engage in unethical practices such as price gouging, market manipulation, and exploitation of labor to maximize profits. Consumer behavior: individuals may prioritize their own financial gain over community welfare, leading to increased competition for resources and neglect of societal needs. 3. How inflation and greed intersect. A. Greed driving inflation. 1. Price gouging. In times of inflation, businesses might seize the opportunity to increase prices